Welcome, nerds, to another episode of the Brief Nerdity podcast. My name is Trent, and I will be your host for this evening. Joining with me, as always, is Ryan. Say hello.
Hi, everybody.
And returning as a extra super special, super duper guest host is Ross.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well.
Very good. So, what's everybody been up to? Anything exciting?
I beat 2 video games this weekend.
Woo!
I was beaten by a video game this weekend.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
Same
do tell.
game. You want to talk about it, or you want me to?
Maybe you start and I'll come in. I feel like if I start, you're not going to get a word in once I start ranting and swearing, and it's going to leave Ryan a lot of editing to do. So this is not an NC-17 rated podcast.
So
what
Ross
good
and
sound
I,
effects could I use for the bleeps? You know, like cat meows or Mario.
I'm always a fan of the moo.
Well, since we're gonna be talking about Ark, I'm assuming you could do like dino noises or something.
I don't know.
you could
Universal might sue the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's possible. You could use the poop noise from Ark.
There you go.
Whenever it poops. So Ross and I and a number of other friends have been playing on Ark server, which I've been hosting through a third-party service, and there's been some kind of bug where dinosaurs are randomly dying when you log in. And it's really
that's
annoying.
Fun.
Yeah. So I mean, things that normally take hours to tame, hours and hours and hours to level, and everything else, and like it's. I don't know if anyone's not familiar with the game, but it's a not survival horror. It's a survival sandbox game where you can tame dinosaurs and use them to protect you against the bigger dinosaurs. Blah blah blah. So basically, you log in, and because of some kind of error with the game, they're clipping in. This is our working theory at the moment. They're clipping into the terrain or into a building or something, and the game is using their anti-cheat so as to not allow people to hide dinosaurs in PvP by hiding them in walls or in boulders and things like that. Is killing the dinosaurs. So, needless to say,
sounds like they're putting all that pre-release game DLC money to good use.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's frustrating, is because every month they release new content with new dinosaurs and new tech and stuff like that, and new things you can craft. But the dinosaurs keep dying, and there's no way to really know which ones or why or how to stop it from happening. And then Ross logged in the other day. I'll let you finish the story from here.
So first off, I think it's important to note a couple things that I feel are valuable for this thing. Because first off, this is not just a problem that we're having. Because I mean, sometimes you host on a server and the server's a piece of and you get random problems based off of that. But this is something that's widely reported on all of their maps. They have 3 different actual maps now. One that was their first one that they was a DLC, or was a mod that they brought the guy on and made it an official free DLC, and then one that is their paid DLC for their early access game. So it happens on all their maps. It's a continual problem. It's not something that's recent. It's been going on for a long time.
Like at least a year and a half for some people that I've seen online.
Wait, it's been happening to people for a year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? When you guys told me this, I thought this was assuming maybe something that just started like the past week or so, but
no, this has been going on for a long time.
But hey, early access.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
So I very much like super hardcore survival games where you're like brutally punished, but that's not really the type that most people in our group like. So we were actually playing the game on a substantially easier setting where it doesn't take as long to tame dinosaurs, because, for example, to get a max level Triceratops that you can find in the wild and tame it and whatnot, it takes 6.5 hours to tame one of them. And that's 6.5 hours where you have to, I mean, that's not even including finding the dinosaur, knocking it out using tranquilizer arrows and whatnot. But after that point, it's 6.5 hours of being there, constantly feeding it, keeping it safe from other things that would come up. So when I logged on, I'd actually lost a couple dinosaurs previously, and because we were a PvE server of friends and whatnot, Trent was able to respawn them because he was the admin for the server, and so it was and if it happens once in a while, it's not a big deal. But I logged on, and of the 15 dinosaurs that I had tamed, 9 of them were dead.
Just all at once.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and they
Jeez.
literally died all at once because when they die, they drop a bag, and the
Mhm.
bags were still there. And it is literally impossible that they were killed by anything in the game for a couple reasons. First off, the 9 of them that died were all really high level, and while not the very strongest dinosaurs, there's nothing that spawns that could have killed them all at the same time, like short of a boss where you have to go to a boss arena and fight it. But secondly, there were tons of other dinosaurs nearby who were on neutral, which means that if your target's attacked, if any allies attack, they all rush in to assist. And
none of them had moved.
And none of them had moved. So I mean, it's clearly a problem with the game. And the thing that made it even more frustrating was that we were pretty sure that the cause is they're clipping into the ground. So I had actually built a very large raised platform, spending a good amount of time and materials, to build this giant wooden structure for them to stand on top of so they wouldn't clip through the ground. And apparently they clipped through the structure into the ground and died because their bags were under the structure. And so, I mean, granted that we were playing on a faster speed, so it was not quite the same time loss for me. It would have been probably about 60 hours of time invested in the game just taming those dinosaurs. Were we playing on an official server with a 1x multiplier for taming speed? And it's just really frustrating because, I mean, the game is super fun. The gameplay is really enjoyable. It actually has a really solid progression system where there's a strong benefit to progressing throughout the game, and it's one of my favorite games that I've played. I mean, I have 700 plus hours in it on Steam, and it completely renders the experience unplayable. I mean, I don't know if people on the public servers, like if they just assume a lot more often that their stuff was killed, but our server was completely PvE, cannot harm tame dinosaurs, even for other tribes, even your own, no friendly fire. And I don't know, it broke my spirit for it, really, because I mean, Trent could have spawned me 9 new dinosaurs of the same level and given them back their experience and all that stuff, but at that point it's not the same dinosaurs. I don't know, maybe I'm just a little too sentimental to the ones that I had, but it really killed any drive that I had to keep going in the game.
Yeah, it's really deflating because especially as a server admin. I mean, I could have given I could have given other people the power to do it, but I mean, I had just respawned 3 of my own when he told me what was going on, and I was like, great. So I'm gonna spend like an hour tonight just fixing what the game is broken, has broken. And so that made me want to play even less, and it's just. Ugh.
Well, and then the biggest thing about it is that they have not acknowledged that there is no message from them. Yes, we know this is broken. Like, we are looking for a fix. Like, I mean, at least not that I've seen. I looked for probably 20 or 30 minutes, but unless it was like incredibly buried, and you think that type of thing would get linked to on Reddit constantly, like they don't even acknowledge it's an issue. And there are thousands of posts on Reddit about it.
Yeah, I could empathize with the guys. That really sucks.
Oh, but they did have a new thing recently where they showed off like all the collaboration they've been doing with this other studio that's making Arc Park, which is going to be a different 3D game for VR. So glad to know that they're looking out for the player base that is there with them from the beginning when they had even more bugs, but they were at least working to fix them, and bought the DLC to help fund them after they were broke after their lawsuit because they were stealing assets, and that they just don't care about anymore.
Yeah, so needless to say, we're a little sour on the game.
Well, I mean, I don't
Little
blame you
salty.
guys. I mean, that's some shady stuff, and a lot of them could be using arguments against my just general dislike of early access games as a whole. But I don't really want to hate on a genre and a game that you guys generally love so much. But
Well, the thing is that it's not really a problem that's just unique to early access, though, because you get other games that release patches later on or release content later on that breaks already existing features, because a year and a half ago, this wasn't a problem in the game. I mean, there were tons of other bugs that were issues. You'd die and fall through the earth and all your stuff would be gone because you couldn't get your corpse. But this was a bug that is more recent, and I assume that it came about when they changed the rules, like Trent was saying, about what dinos could clip into, because there used to be a big problem in PvP that they would hide dinosaurs in walls so people couldn't find them. And so they made it, well, if your dino clips into stuff, then they die. But I'm pretty sure this is built on Unreal Engine. And it's like, there's other games with Unreal Engine that have solved problems with things clipping into the ground clearly. So it's like, I don't understand I mean, I obviously don't have a technical background to appreciate what goes into these type of things, but it's like I don't understand why we can't at least get some forward progress on this, or at the very least a server setting that is turn on damage for clipped items, turn off damage for clipped items.
Right. Or some kind of server tools for the server admin to show them, all dinosaur deaths, because the server has to track them on some level. And there's literally no way to like bring up a log, as far as I was able to find, for the server admin to see what dinosaurs died and why, track them if they're still alive and just lost, or just any of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I know people are asking for it because I've seen tons of Steam threads, Reddit threads, GameFAQ threads, like all over the place about all these problems. Everyone's like, wouldn't it be great if?
Well, and in the
Like,
instances where people have made mods, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going out of their way to break them, but when they've broken them and changed, API hooks and things like that, they haven't given, like, when people have asked, okay, how do we do this now that you've changed stuff? They're unresponsive to the modders that are willing to spend the time making the tools.
right.
Oh, but wait, now they've decided they're gonna pay modders to make mods for their game because apparently they have so much money. They're gonna pay modders $4,000 a month if they're selected as a premium modder to finish their mods for their game.
Right. So apparently they're flush with money again, I guess, or something. I don't understand. All that DLC money coming up for them.
Well, let's move on. I think from this Salt Fest to something a little more optimistic. Clearly, there's been a lot of kind of divisiveness, and a lot of people unhappy with the way things are going in the U.S. one way or another. So NASA found a bunch of new planets we can all go to if this one doesn't work out.
Theoretically.
I'm really surprised like BioWare isn't using this as an opportunity to like be like, oh, you could build an ark and send, people in cryosleep just like we're doing to Andromeda, coming in Mass Effect Andromeda, March 21st. Hooray!
Well, I mean, we look back now at Star Trek and how much of our science, quote unquote, or our technological advancement came from Star Trek, not because Star Trek was so good at predicting what was going to happen, but because those things inspired the next generation of inventors to create what they'd seen.
Yeah,
and I mean, so maybe one day Mass Effect will be that. Maybe we'll be going in cryo sleep.
Yeah, I mean, Mass Effect is hardly the first sci-fi to do like a cryo sleep. Is like in real life, is cryo sleep a thing yet? Have we figured that out?
We can figure out how to put them in cryo sleep. We can't figure out how to get them out alive.
That's funny.
Basically, we haven't been able to prevent these cells from rupturing due to the water freezing. That's my understanding.
I actually don't even know if we'll need it for much, assuming that these faster than warp drives that are faster than light drives that they're calling warp drives after Star Trek work the way that they want them to. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, Trent? Why don't you tell everyone what NASA actually found, and then I gotta have another science fiction point to bring back in for you.
So for anyone who doesn't follow super like astrophysics nerdy stuff, NASA found the system had already been found by, I think, a Brazilian,
probably some non-white person, and now these NASA scientists are Columbusing it.
That's right. So the system was found. They knew it had at least 3 planets, and they pointed a really powerful set of telescopes, one of them I believe in orbit, but not the Hubble, at this system, and found that there are actually 7 planets orbiting this dwarf star, and 3 of them are in the quote-unquote Goldilocks zone, which means that they could have liquid water on the surface. And all of them are like Earth-sized planets, all 7 of them, and there could be ice or water on all of them, and it's very exciting. They've actually got the ability to, on a couple of them, they're visible enough that they can use a type of, and I don't know nearly enough about this to be intelligent on it, but there's a type of telescope scan that they can do where they can figure out the like what makes up the planet and actually see if there's water on it from here, which is pretty awesome.
Science.
Science.
It's also something we're never ever going to see. Or stepped
I
it on,
mean, you
I
know,
guess I
my
should say.
my mom's granddad said that about flying and the moon.
That depends on if transhumanists get their way or not. Because there are some. This is another random tangent, but there are some anti-aging technology scientists and also some transhumanist scientists who believe that we have already crossed over the I forget what they call it, but it's basically a point of no return where we are young enough and will be around when enough advancements come out in age that we could live for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
Eh? Eh? Or
Well,
they're
there you
going to
go.
download us into computers and we're all going to be AI.
Someone actually made a talk about that though. They kind of did a thing saying, I think it was Adam Ruins Everything. Adam Conover was like, "You are going to die." He's like, "You may think that like you're going to be uploaded into an intelligence, but it's just going to be a copy and paste, not a cut and paste. You know, a virtual AI of you is going to exist, but you, the person, the soul that inhabits your current body, is still going to die when that AI lives on."
Well, that depends
Yeah,
highly on what you classify as soul.
right. If you, yeah, that depends entirely on. I mean, every time you go to sleep at night and wake back up, are you the same you?
Yeah, it's true. But you guys,
I mean, your body that you had 10 years ago is not the body that you have now at all.
yeah, and I understand that, but like our consciousness is going to die, so to speak. I guess I don't know. I guess I just repeated myself rather than making a better explanation.
That's right. On the internet, that counts as like
But-
excellent reasoned arguing.
You just keep screaming the same thing over and over again.
Ah!
Eventually,
I don't know. Like,
you're right.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm definitely excited for living hundreds of years and then potentially uploading a copy of myself into an AI body. And yeah,
See, I'm really curious about what that will do for our society, kind of because there is a lot of progress in our society that's only made when people die because they take their old set in their way notions and they're gone because their kids think differently than they do. And regardless of which, particular, like not making this a particular, gay marriage or anything like that, not a specific argument, but it's like a lot of the progress we have comes when people who have looked at things one way die and we get people who look at things in a new and better way. So like the concept of everyone living forever, I'm not sure that that's a great idea. I think that some of these people deserve to have nice long lives and then they die and society gets to progress.
virtual Abraham Lincoln is now our new president.
But if we have enough new people still being born, I mean, there will still be eventually more people with the new way of thinking, possibly, than the old way. And so you could outnumber them even if they're still alive.
And when one side of the party goes, if you don't like it, you could just get out.
Right.
Then you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to go to Andromeda and start a new country with blackjack and hookers.
Well, assuming that, like.
Is that what's coming in
generational
Andromeda?
shifts
Is blackjack and hookers?
keep happening the
I would
same
hope
way.
so.
Speaking of, why don't you share your Kotaku article that's related to this, Ross? About the Trappist solar system.
Oh, so Trent likes to make fun of me about this article because he did before we started. So wait for it. You're going to get to hear it. I know you guys love that. So Elite Dangerous has a pretty cool system that they use to create their universe because there were tons of planets in their universe and they couldn't craft them all by hand. But unlike some other space games that remain nameless and unloved, theirs is actually well done.
But do they have 4 quintillion or quadrillion or whatever the number was? Like that.
It's about quality and quantity. You can't just have like, I mean, if I have a stadium full of marbles, I mean that's how many planets there are in No Man's Sky, and those marbles are probably each more interesting than any of the planets there.
Sick burn, dude.
Yeah, I don't get out much. But so Elite Dangerous had the TRAPPIST system actually in game where it was located, and it has 7 planets orbiting a dwarf star. And Trent, you can go ahead and make fun of me now, and then I'll tell you why I think you're wrong.
Okay, it's not right where it's located. First off, it's 29 light years away. It's a different type of dwarf star, and some of those 7 quote-unquote celestial bodies are moons and not Earth-sized planets. So, I mean,
ooh, you just got told.
you look at any like solar system generating game like, I don't know, Stellaris or any other game like that, I'm sure someone somewhere has made a system with a dwarf star and 7 planets. Like it's very, very, very few things that could possibly be generated by a random number generator.
Well, and
Especially if
okay,
you're doing that millions of times.
but
10 points to Gryffindor. Ross's point. Go.
but
I'm actually
so first off, intergalactically speaking, 39 light years is like nothing. It's a very small distance in the grand scheme of things. But the part that's interesting is that the way they programmed their system was it took known giant like celestial bodies that had lots of gravity, and then they built a system that tried to abstract what other things would account for the behavior of these other objects that they couldn't see. So basically they know, we've seen this meteor, it orbits on this path. What could be over here in this empty space that we don't know about that would have the correct gravity profile to cause this other behavior and be consistent? I mean, and I'm sure that I'm sure they got some pretty smart people to do it, but I'm not saying that this is like, the Einsteins of the world putting this together. But I mean, it wasn't just, let's make random stuff in every system and we happen to, roll Yahtzee. This was actually based off of extrapolated data from the visible universe. And I think that that's substantially different than saying, let's make every possible variation and wait until we, hit the Powerball.
No, the world gen or universe gen stuff is very cool, and I forget what they called it, but
Their Stellar Forge.
Stellar Forge. I mean, it's
which is either a forge that does like things in space, or it's like a really groovy forge from like the 70s. It's just stellar.
Isn't that the thing that like Revan's looking for in KOTOR?
That's the Star Forge.
Ah, that's close.
Has the word forge in it.
That's right, and an SS Forge. Yeah, I mean, it is very cool. And so I was being sassy earlier to him, not being completely fair, because it is pretty neat stuff. But I'm like, oh, look, they happened to create a random thing with 7. Like 7 is such a rare number. But yeah,
it's all right. Sassy Trent, in my opinion, is the best Trent, and I'm willing to make the personal sacrifice to bring him to you, the rest of the internet.
I just need to drink more before the podcast. I think that would really help.
Be like the old Rooster Teeth drunk tank days.
Yes, except we can't talk about it because we'll never get sponsors, which is why they had to change their name.
Yeah.
So, anywho, cool stuff. Nerdy, not in our normal nerd vein, so I thought we could talk about that for a little bit.
One final point that I think is really cool is that Neil deGrasse Tyson said that because there were 7 of them and they orbited a dwarf star, that he proposed that they name them after the 7 dwarfs.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Also,
I want to go live on Dopey.
I feel like we already live on Dopey.
The planet Dopey.
Podcast now. I want to go live on Dopey.
quick science sneak peek for the future. They're looking at revamping the definition of what is a planet and making Pluto a planet again. But they're also in that are going to be changing the definition of planet to where it has to be an orbiting body, but not around the sun. So a number of what we would consider moons in our galaxy will become classified as planets, because in our language, words are subjective and have no true meaning.
Stupid. I don't like that. That means like every asteroid and like every thing in the Kuiper Belt is going to
there's other definitions that they have to meet.
Because Pluto is one of like thousands of bodies out in the Kuiper Belt. That's why it's not a planet.
I know all about the belt. I've been watching The Expanse.
Different belt, but yes.
What?
It's a different belt.
To
There's more than one belt?
war, the
There's
galaxy is on
Space is so
Orion's
big.
belt.
The galaxy. No, there's the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and then there's the Kuiper Belt outside of Neptune. That kind of like a shell around the solar system. It's like protoplanets, ice chunks, comets, asteroids. You should look it up. It's really cool. It's like Kuyper. Anywho. So because we can't not talk about Star Wars.
Can't we really though? It's coming out. Can we just move on?
Rogue One's coming out on video soon. Yay! Ryan, do you have the dates?
Not offhand. Let me look. I'm most excited for the special features, though, as I am with every Star Wars release. This one is looking a little slim pickings. The only one I'm really excited for is the how they did It's just called The Princess and the Governor. See what it took to bring the vibrant young princess of Star Wars New Hope, as well as one of her most memorable foes, back to the screen. So it'll be a little mini documentary on.
I heard that I read that George Lucas actually got involved in this, and that there's a new scene with Jar Jar where he's with the princess.
Comes
I'm
on
full of
digital
crap,
on
but-
March
I
24th
was
and
gonna say
Blu-ray
that's-
on April 4th.
That is nonsense, and you deserve to die.
So they decided to release it the same week as Mass Effect.
Nice.
You got dual monitors.
Which means that I will not see it for about a month after it comes out. Because I will.
Wait, this is Rogue One. This is the because the other one's already out on DVD. Yeah, I'll have to see that. I still haven't seen it.
It's really good. I think you would like it.
Wait, Rogue One?
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen Rogue One.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you don't see movies in theaters. But
yeah, that's not a Star Wars diss. I don't see a lot of movies in theaters. I have some hearing problems that make it more difficult.
Take it as one. I actually don't know if I'll watch it. I'll probably buy it, but just not watch it.
So it's like a Steam game.
Well, I don't know. I saw it 4 times in theaters, and I don't know. Like on further reflection, I obviously really enjoyed it, but I don't like it like as much as I liked Force Awakens. And I think 4 times is good enough for me.
You just feel like if you're going to sit down and spend an afternoon watching Star Wars, you have better offerings to choose from.
Yeah, for now, I guess. And
at least 4.
No, and my own hype train is kind of started for episode 8, and so like I need to rewatch episode 7 again.
Well, I think that's the real news coming off of the announcement of Rogue One coming on video. Is that's basically going to mark the start of the Force Awakens campaign, or media campaign, heading towards Celebration and then December.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure we're going to get just scraps until Celebration, and that's where they're going to drop the first trailer in the room that you and I will be in.
Yes, it's very exciting. So there was another amazing Mass Effect Andromeda gameplay video out this week. It's like it's almost out on. It's like the game's almost out. There's just content coming at us every week now.
I wasn't very excited for Mass Effect like a couple months ago. Like I was excited it was coming, and like, oh sure, it'll be fun. I'll play it when it gets here. But at my house, the hype train is in full swing at this point. And like I'm like looking at like the assignments I have for school that week and making sure that I either have them done ahead of time or like can just miss that week and make them up. Like the Mass Effect season has begun.
But we'll push you over the top.
These comments about the game basically being softcore porn. No, no. Just some of the gameplay videos of the weapons specifically. One of the things that I felt really bad about from Mass Effect 3, not that I felt really bad in general. One of the greatest games. Really, it's one of the best games. It was just huge. But was that I felt that the loadouts and the setup for multiplayer was better than it was for single player in a lot of instances. And it was like some of the stuff that you could do in multiplayer, it would have been really cool to take back to the single player, and you couldn't. And it looks like they've really, like, the best of everything that Mass Effect 3 had in multiplayer has come back to the single player for Andromeda.
And you do know the team at BioWare who made Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is the head team of Andromeda, period, right?
Nope.
Yeah, BioWare Edmonton made
not a cultist like you.
Yeah, BioWare Edmonton made the trilogy, like all the single player content, and then BioWare Ontario, I think.
I mean, I also don't have a document that has like all their names and like their pictures and their social security numbers and home addresses and the names of their kids, but you do you.
I'm not supposed to tell anybody that. So that's just, people have mentioned that in the multiplayer gameplay that like it's basically taking Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, making it better, and then putting it in single player and presumably multiplayer, which we haven't seen any of yet, but we could only assume that it's going to be fantastic.
I am a little, like, the multiplayer makes me a little nervous, given to the point that it's like I should start paying like $100 for the game anytime now, which includes like packs for multiplayer. Like I would like to, before I choose which version of the game, since mainly the free stuff that you get with the better versions is mostly for multiplayer. At least for the last version, the top tier version is for multiplayer. I'd like to at least know what I'm getting before I give you $100. Like, I'm probably going to give you 100 anyways, if not 100, definitely 70. But like, can I know what I'm buying when I give you my money, please?
Yeah, I think they need to do a little bit more tease on what multiplayer is going to be like and its impact, what the boxes will give you, all that good stuff.
Well, because it's like I was asking Trent, because so between like the mid tier and the top tier version, the only difference is I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, because you know everything about Mass Effect. Is you get like 20 packs, or you get one pack every week, like a premium pack, so like the top tier packs, uh, for multiplayer. And so my question was, is it better to, like I'd like to make a conscious decision. Would I rather have, even because I'm sure they're at a discount, but it's like, would I rather have 10 packs on day one or a pack every week for 20 weeks? Because there was a lot of stuff in, especially Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, that was like super cool, but you had to unlock it. It's like there were entire like strategies and game like I don't want to say game types, but like they're entirely different compositions that you could do with some of the characters that were rare unlocks. And so it's like I'd like to be able to make a conscious decision when I like a pack every. I mean, because it could be like you can only get 4 packs; they're really expensive, or it could be you could get like 15 packs, and like depending on where that number ends up, I might rather just buy the medium version and then pay the extra money up front and get my packs front loaded rather than over 20 weeks. When, as much as I like Mass Effect, a lot of the games that we really like that I play with my friends, especially in multiplayer, don't stick around for 20 weeks.
Yeah, and I just looked up the exact definition of what it says. It says comes with a multiplayer boost pack. It says jumpstart your multiplayer co-op experience with a booster pack. Includes 5x of 50% XP boosters. Receive instantly, 1 per match. But then where's the?
But doesn't that come with the middle level as well, or no?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Really, how this works is like in a week I'll ask Ryan again, and I'll be like, "So which one am I buying and where?" And he'll tell me, and I'll go buy it, because that's there's sometimes you make your own choices, and sometimes you just trust in the expertise of other people.
Well, I mean, my main driver for getting the bigger edition is just to support Mass Effect. I've said in this podcast before, Dead Space is inherently dead at the moment, and because didn't earn enough money, and so I never ever want Mass Effect to become one of those franchises, and so I want to support them in any way I can. And so if it's paying 20 extra bucks for something I'm probably really not going to need or use, I'm perfectly fine with that. This is coming from the person who basically, again, as I mentioned before, scheduled a travel plan to San Francisco for a lot of things, but the main driver behind it was to go to California's Great America and ride the new Mass Effect ride that they had there.
And I totally agree with you about supporting developers, but at the same time, it's like, if I don't feel that $30 is worth it, I'd rather save the $30 and spend it on an aesthetic DLC or something else. Because I mean, This is not going to be a game without DLC, people. I mean,
oh yeah, totally.
But I completely agree about.
But it's not going to have a season pass, which is interesting, right?
That's probably because BioWare and EA know that everyone is going to buy all the DLC at full price, or at least the main story chunk.
Not only that, but I think that EA specifically is a company that people love to hate, and there's been so much kerfluffle around different, DLC pricings.
That's true.
I mean, I know at least one great game that was completely destroyed because of how their pre-order and DLC stuff worked, and like the game failed hard, and I think that was a large part of it was like the bad, and that's Evolve. Like that is honestly one of the most fun games that I've played ever, but it got such bad press about the fact that there were like 16 different ways you could buy the DLC on day one.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see big companies specifically just get away from that because it has such a potential to derail their agenda.
Yeah, but I mean, 2 or 3 major DLC packs with a season pass that gives you a slight discount has become fairly standard lately. And if EA is doing this just to make sure that everyone pays full price for every DLC like they did for the other Mass Effect games, I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of that.
It could really go either way. I guess we won't know until they announce what the DLCs are and what their cost is. And to kind of give them a little bit of credit, the Dragon Age Inquisition had a Game of the Year edition that came with all the DLC that I purchased, even though I owned Dragon Age Inquisition, I never bought any of the DLC, but then they had a sale to where the Game of the Year edition was, $20, and so I just bought the game again to get all the DLC, because the DLC standalone was like $15-20, where I could pay $20 and get the Game of the Year edition that had all the DLC, down the line.
That's
And
true.
they never did that before. That's a common complaint now, that the original Mass Effect trilogy doesn't have any pack that comes with all the DLC. The only pack they did was the Mass Effect trilogy that comes with the vanilla all 3 games, but you still have to buy all the DLC.
Whew, I didn't realize I didn't come with a DLC. That sucks.
Yeah. So it
Yeah,
makes it
so
so hard
there's-
as a hardcore fan like myself to try to suggest to someone, like, okay, well, look, the trilogy's on sale for $10. Oh, cool, I'm gonna play it. Oh, and you gotta buy like Lair of the Shadow Broker, and you gotta buy the Arrival DLC, and then the Citadel DLC is really good in Mass Effect 3, and then Leviathan gives you a lot of backstory that you kind of need, so it's like, oh, all that DLC is like $70 total.
That's where you just
Okay.
start watching things on YouTube. It's like you just watch the DLC.
No. That's when you compare it to how much it would cost to buy everything in the Sims 4 catalog. Like, look, it's so much cheaper than like $400 or whatever it is at this point.
You know what? I don't know why you remind me of things that I don't want to be reminded of.
It's because I'm evil.
Do you know the actual full cost of all the Sims DLC?
Of just Sims 4 or literally everything?
Just Sims 3 is the first number that I pulled up when I Googled it.
I would guess it's over $3,000.
It's much higher than
I'm
that.
gonna
Wow.
It is $74,486.
that is the full price of all of them if you bought them on day one, I imagine. And not in a bundle. Like that is the most you could possibly pay for all of
That
them.
is so high.
That's including all the microtransactions, but you're right, Trent. Just all the DLCs and expansions themselves cost $439 for the Sims.
Okay. I was
That's substantially different.
Yeah.
Orders
right.
of magnitude.
That's like everything in their little microtransaction store that people put up for sale. And
Yeah, I just did the Google I Googled it, and then the Google showed the result it thinks I want, kind of at the top before it actually has just clickable links, and that's what the result at the top said until I actually clicked on its source
Here's the
link
funny
and then
thing.
dove in.
Is that I've always
fake news.
Yeah.
I've always felt that the Sims really missed the boat on microtransactions, because I feel like if you could get actual companies to like design or let you design content for them, like when I go in and look at my Sims, I have like 7 options for shoes, right? Or I mean for like sneakers specifically. Like if there was an option to like get a pair of Nikes or a pair of Adidas or a pair of Reeboks, like I'm not really a big shoe person, but like, I'd still like scroll through them and find one, like, and they were like 99 cents. Man, I'd click that button. And then I'd decide later I liked other shoes and I'd click that button. And it'd be free advertising for like actual companies. Like Nike could advertise shoes on their Reebok. Like you get all these people in there. And especially because like one of the big things with Sims 3 now is like people create celebrity houses. Like if you had let designers create stuff, like their stuff in the Sims and then sold it, like I think people would make bank.
And not to back up to a previous topic, but I realized I had clicked on the wrong thing on the Mass Effect Andromeda pre-order page. And yeah, you're right. It says dominate your co-op play with a premium pack coming your way for every week for 20 weeks. So I guess once
I imagine that's going to be the
get
equivalent of the
what-
Spectre packs.
Probably, but probably as soon as we get a definition of what exactly it is on that scale. But I imagine that'd be it. So 20 of those, for $30. So it's 20 divided by 30.
Because the Spectre packs, I believe the most expensive ones last time were $1.99. They may have been $2.99. I think they were $1.99. So
the monetary value is, so I did that backwards. It's divided by 20.
74 cents.
$1.50 a piece.
So I'm saying, like, if it's only a 50-cent discount per pack, I'm pretty sure I'd rather have 15 packs on day one than 20 packs 20 weeks in. But we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. And there's always the potential they add a sweetener to it after the fact.
Yeah. And for one, I kind of like the every week for 20 weeks because it'll give me incentive to keep going back in and playing.
I feel like if it's not, but I worry that like after 10 weeks, if I don't have friends to play with, I won't go back, and then I'll have all these packs sitting there, and you know me, it's always a crapshoot whether I'll have any friends in 10 weeks. So,
well, I mean, if it's anything like Mass Effect 3, we've revisited Mass Effect 3's multiplayer 5 or 6 times since it came out. Just on our PC group of friends. So I'm assuming if it's anywhere near as fun which is probably going to be as fun or better as the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. We'll be playing it off and on for a while.
And just speaking for myself, I played Mass Effect 3 on Xbox 360, so unfortunately I didn't get to play with you guys, but I played it probably for the first 2 weeks or so. I played with my few friends that had on 360, but after they dropped off, I just kept playing it. I kept playing it. I was just by myself, with randoms or with Reddit groups that would get together and play.
Nice.
And so
well, and there's also the thing. It's like if you buy that and then you spend the first, I don't know, however long it takes you to get your fill of the single player game in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When you're ready to dive into the multiplayer, you have these packs waiting for you, which is pretty cool.
And then I also want to delve in what I talked to you about in Messenger, Ross, and it's how I'm going about my pre-ordering of the game. So I'm going to kind of explain the whole thing in case some people don't know, but there's a thing called EA Access for Xbox One or Origin Access for PC users. It's a $30 a year or a $5 a month, whatever you choose, membership. With that membership, you get access to this vault of games in EA's library. I think it's 30, 40 games. The Mass Effect trilogy is included in that. Not like we don't own it anyways, but the two biggest things on there for me is that you get a 10% discount on any purchase in the Origin store. Then you also get access to game trials.
I believe it's any game purchase in the Origin store, just to be clear.
Okay. That's cool then. So what I'm going to do on March 1st, which is just 2 days from now, I'm going to pay for 1 month of Origin Access for the $5, and then I'm going to use the 10% discount to buy the $100 version of Andromeda, which will give me a $10 discount. So I basically got a $5 discount in the long run. And then 5 days before Mass Effect Andromeda comes out, aka March 16th, we're going to get a 10-hour trial of the game. And it's not just a trial that they're not going to wipe the server when it's done. At least maybe the multiplayer, but definitely not your single player progress, because that's part of their advertisement, the feature that you play the single player and your progress will continue from where you left off. So you'll have 10 hours to create your character, play the beginning of the game, and get a feel for it. Make sure it's not buggy, it runs well on your machine, etc., because you're still able to cancel your pre-order at that point. And they've hinted at it, but they haven't confirmed that the multiplayer may be infinite during that trial period. So aka you get to play 10 hours of the campaign, so people don't get super spoilery before the game actually comes out, but you could play the multiplayer indefinitely during that 5-day trial. Just a rumor right now for the multiplayer part, but either way, like I said, it gets me a little bit cheaper discount on the game, gets me the game 5 days early. And so that's what I personally will be doing.
It's pretty exciting. So we got 2 more stories to go with Mass Effect, and then we should try to probably move on to something else. But everyone's favorite, one of my favorite Game of Thrones characters is voicing the Doctor of your ship in Mass Effect Andromeda. It's Natalie Dormer, who plays Marjorie Tyrell, and she is Dr. So-and-so, and I can't remember her name now.
Natalie Dormer and a clone of the former. That's a Reddit joke for you all out there.
I don't know what that means.
And apparently he's not going to explain it to you.
Okay, I'll have to remember exactly what it was, but I think the Reddit thread was you could have sex with 2 celebrities, but only if their names rhyme or something like that. And someone said Natalie Dormer and a clone of the former. That was the top answer.
That's pretty great.
So I think that was the story of that.
So we were talking earlier about the importance of supporting developers and how when the games don't sell well, that can be the death for franchise. And so one thing I feel that for developers is always a little bit of a risky proposition is who they target their game towards. Because, for example, The Witcher 3 is the most sexually explicit game that I own. I understand that there are clearly lots of games that are more sexually explicit than The Witcher out there, but that really would be the most graphically sexual game that I've played.
It's probably one of the most sexually graphic AAA games also, would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for AAA ones. But I didn't really feel like sometimes you see games and it feels like that the sex stuff is really kind of ham-fisted and not well done. But I didn't really feel that way in The Witcher, even though it doesn't have as much. It's more on the rails with the romance stuff in a lot of ways than even some other games out there. But So it's a really interesting choice whether you tailor, to a wider audience or try to make it a more real life immersive experience for an older audience, a more rich experience. And there were some interesting comments today on Twitter that got EA in a little bit of dicey position, some hot water. Let me pull up the actual thing. Or Ryan, do you want to cover this? I feel like you never talk as much, Ryan.
Me talk about Mass Effect?
Go for it.
What?
So real quick, I'm gonna jump in. The doctor's name is Lexi Tapero, and she's the Tempest's doctor, which is your ship in Mass Effect Andromeda, and that is voiced by Natalie Dormer. And she also said in the video, and I forget who his character's name is. I don't know if we've met him or not, but the guy who plays Renly Baratheon in Game of Thrones, or who played, I guess, spoiler alert, is also going to be voicing a character.
Wait, he dies?
in Mass Effect. So that's pretty exciting.
He dies in Mass Effect?
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop now. But yeah, so to go back to the...
Everyone dies, the Andromeda galaxy explodes, the end. Ha,
Yep.
Yeah,
I've ruined it all for everyone.
In any game, you'll know that your ship's doomed if Sean Bean is on it.
Not in
At least
that
this
really
one.
dumb B, or the movie where Sean Bean was like a B person. Oh man, what's Jupiter Ascending, that movie?
Anyways,
Doesn't
tell us
actually-
about this. Tell us
die in
about
that
this Mass
movie.
Effect softcore porn.
Sean Bean or Tom Hanks, do not ever travel with either of those two people, because you're in trouble.
So Aaron Flynn took to Twitter today to people talk about the romance options in Mass Effect Andromeda, and I guess in a kidding not kidding sort of way, he was like, yes, it's totally softcore space porn. And then when people clarified, he was just like, it totally is. And then I guess after a little bit of backlash, question mark, he had to clarify that he was kidding. So not quite sure what that means. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be really softcore porn or late night HBO level stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty sure based on these comments and based on the rating that it has strong sexual content and nudity, not just partial nudity, but nudity. I think we're going to get a decent bit of it on there, which is funny considering, you guys talked about AAA games and the fact that only 10 years ago, just having, a shadow of Liara's butt in 2007's Mass Effect, it caused a whole quote unquote controversy, and Fox News ran a story
shadow.
Xbox, and everything about a story of this guy who womanizes and tries to sleep with everybody, and that might have been my character, but not was everybody's character. Just kidding.
My character was loyal to Liara. Period. I did not romance anyone in the second Mass Effect.
That entire aspect made national cable news headlines.
Yeah.
It was because when the idiot lawyer out of Florida was trying to after the one he'd been crying foul for years and years and years over video games, and then they found the hot coffee mod for GTA, and he was like, see, and so because it's kind of like what you're talking about with the solar system, because the idiot that stands on the corner and screams random things happened to be right once, all of a sudden he gained credibility and notoriety.
Well, he eventually got disbarred, so that's okay.
Woo. Yeah, it's like those people that go to gay pride parades and then scream about finding things that you would find in a gay pride parade. It's like if you're looking for it, you're gonna find it.
It's like I went to the store the other day and I was looking at buying some nuts, like the kind that you would eat, not the kind that you would put on like a bolt. And so I'm trying to be a little more health conscious because I'm a little bit of a bigger person. And so I was looking at the stuff, and on the container it says, warning, may contain nuts. Yeah, I would hope so.
Wow.
But yeah, so lots of good Mass Effect stuff. Be sure to tune in to us talking about it every week for the next foreseeable future.
For the next 6 years.
7 to 8 weeks at least.
Yep. And then we'll probably keep playing multiplayer after that too.
No, but by the time that you get done talking about the base game, you'll be talking about the DLC that was announced that's coming up. You'll be talking about Mass Effect for the next 2.5 years.
So welcome to our official, unofficial, brief nerdy Mass Effect podcast.
That's right. It's pretty much just going to be Mass Effect and Star Wars for a few months, just to give everyone fair warning. There'll be a sprinkle of Zelda and a few other things, but mainly just those two things.
So not to switch the topic on you, but speaking of Zelda, how do you feel about the fact that not all of the games on the Switch will work on a television?
I don't want to say upset about it, but it causes concern, because one of my most excited aspects of the Switch was the fact that Nintendo's portable library and their console library are going to be merged onto a single device. So AKA I was
Maybe.
hoping that maybe asterisk, but it will. I was hoping that the next mainline Pokemon game or the Sun and Moon third game would be released on the Switch, and then I could plug it in and play it on my TV if I want to play it on my TV, versus making the mainstream Pokemon games be a literal handheld only experience. And so, but a game has recently been announced as coming out that it is exclusive to portable mode only. Because it uses the touchscreen features, obviously. And we know that some things like that are going to happen because of the touchscreen. You can't play Angry Birds really well with controller, so to speak. And so, where I'm sure there's some better touchscreen games I could think of that just wouldn't work at all with controller. And so, like, those things are fine, but I hope it doesn't set a precedent that other game companies will put their game in portable mode only just to be quote unquote lazy and just have a touchscreen interface than rather mapping
Well,
it
and
to
you
a
can make the
controller.
graphics not look as good because it's a lot easier to have your graphics look sharp on a smaller screen than
Yeah.
a larger screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wouldn't be too worried about some of the bigger stuff because I think there's going to be a big demand for something like Pokemon on your main screen, and there's nothing really about the Pokemon gameplay itself, like 99% of the game, that can't be done with a regular controller. So,
So I was really frustrated about it initially, but actually having thought about it, even just what we've been talking about, is actually when this thought came to me, is it actually makes me really excited and somewhat hopeful, because it's possible that we will get virtual console versions of DS and 3DS games on there now that use the touchscreen. Whereas before that they wouldn't necessarily want to have to completely remap everything and make a whole system to jump between the main screen and the touch screen, all this stuff. Like, I'd be willing to deal with that some of their games don't run on the television if I could get, a lot of my DS or 3DS library on the Switch.
I just want to know how that would work, because if
Yeah,
you're holding it
how's the screen
horizontally like it's supposed to be, the two screens scrunched there in the middle on top of each other will be extremely tiny, and if you have to flip it to hold it vertically, like, how do the controllers work and the stand?
Well, you can play with the controllers off. But yeah, I guess the stand could be an issue.
Yeah, but then you have the touchscreen issue that you're going to hold the Joy-Con
there
and then
are some
drop
games.
one of them for the stylus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you use two hands to control your 3DS and have to let go to use the
Yes,
stylus
but
to
when
touch
you
the
let
screen.
go of one of the Joy-Cons, you literally have to set it down. Whereas if you let go of one side of your 3DS,
That's true.
you're still holding the 3DS.
I mean, there are not that we would ever, support piracy and or emulation, but there are some emulators out there that, for like tablets, for like Android tablets for like the DS, and it just puts them left and right. And for most games, that's fine. For a few games, it's a really weird visual, but most of the time,
That's true.
more than adequate.
Never thought of that. I once walked in on a roommate of mine playing a DS emulator on his computer, and it was a laptop, but he literally had his laptop like open to a 90-degree angle and laying on its side, and was playing the DS games that way.
Wow.
I mean, of all the sentences you could give that start with you walking in on your roommate, I feel that was one of the more benign endings.
I was like, where's he going with this?
He wasn't playing Mass Effect, that's for sure.
It's a family show.
Anyway, so another news story that I'm really excited about this week is that the new Marvel games are not going to be bound by the TV and movie verse canon.
Thank God.
I think this is a really, really good idea.
I think it's the best idea.
I think it's really the only good way to do it, because you, at some point, like, big universe is awesome, and the continuity between them is awesome, but it's already enough trouble for them to connect the TV and the movie universes together. And the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets crapped on, in my opinion. We've talked about this before. But can you imagine, like, if the games had to follow both the TV and the movie universe and couldn't tell any stories on their own that had any real impact?
Yeah,
or had branching endings at all.
Right. Because then it would
Yep.
be like, well, what's canon?
like the upcoming Spider-Man game, if it had to fit within the current universe, it'd be like, who's he gonna fight? That they're never gonna address in the movies. Like, oh, we want Venom to be the villain, but then you use Venom for the game, but not for the movies, and
Right.
he's never gonna reference this battle he had before with the main villain, even if it was a smaller main villain. It's just it would have to be inconsequential because nothing in the Marvel universe would ever really be able to reference it, as if so to speak. So, but yeah, I agree. This is definitely for the best.
I do want to say that's kind of weird. One thing about the Marvel universe that's bugged me a little bit is that it's like it seems like none of these people ever do anything when they're not on screen. Like to me, it would make more sense if like Tony Stark was going out and Tony Starking all over the place, like if they did reference like, oh yeah, I mean I took down this cartel 2 years ago that blah blah. Like it seems like plot stuff happens, but they don't really do any missions that we don't ever see. They're never referenced. They have no life beyond the small snippets that we see in the movies.
Yeah, I just wish that they would do a little bit more like Star Wars Rogue One did. I mean, all of its nods to Rebels in the expanded universe thus far were all pretty light, and only hardcore fans would see them and point them out. But it still made us getting happy when we saw them. But people like my mom who went and saw Star Wars, didn't see it, didn't care, but still enjoyed the movie. I think Marvel's just afraid that if they reference anything else other than like the previous one or two movies, like then they're gonna lose their audience.
Yeah.
It's like now that the nerdy went mainstream, they're scared to going back to being too nerdy.
Right.
I mean, especially in not Civil War, but the Winter Soldier would have killed them to like have a cameo of one of the Agents of Shield cast in there somewhere. I mean, probably a whole third of the movie took place at Shield headquarters, and they couldn't and had plenty of Shield agents, but couldn't have a single one doing anything.
Well, I think that's really going to be a problem and come to a head in Infinity Wars because it's not going to make any sense at all in Infinity Wars for Shield not to be there. At least they are inhuman assets under the Sokovia Accords.
Yeah. Well, and there's rumors about whether or not Quake and the other ones are going to show up.
God, I hope so.
I think it'd be great if they did. I mean, I really want the Defenders to show up too, but I mean that's not even guaranteed either.
I mean, even if they're not there, like fighting the main bad guy, if it showed like Luke Cage like pulling people out of buildings after the Hulk knocked him over and stuff, and
yeah,
like that's all I'm asking for is like acknowledge that these people exist.
Yeah.
I really want Kingpin to be a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, I don't. Kingpin to me has always been a Spider-Man villain growing up, and they take him and put him in everything else. And it's like I get that he was in other things, but since Spider-Man was like my primary franchise, it's always like yeah.
Well, Spider-Man and Daredevil always went kind of hand in hand, and I would say that Kingpin is more of a Daredevil villain from the old comic days. But yeah, if we're talking the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, then
I understand that the history is against
of that one.
Well, Daredevil showed up quite a bit in that cartoon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was my favorite thing about that. I think like they even had like Doctor Strange show up a couple times, all kinds of fun things like that.
So, do you guys watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pretty routinely, or have you written it off?
I've watched it up until the mid-season finale. I haven't watched any since then, and so
I haven't watched any since the people disappeared.
Did you mind like a small? It's not even a content spoiler. It was just a moment this past week that is like my favorite moment from the entire series. Or would you rather just wait?
I'd rather wait.
I personally have heard not what it is, but I've heard that it made a splash.
Oh, I don't know that mine made a splash. Mine was more of a social moment, but you can you guys can watch it. I will say that I was this past week was the perfect week of television because I felt that every one of my superhero shows that I watch, which is all the CW ones, maybe not the time traveling one, they were kind of whatever, but Flash, Arrow, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., everyone this past week like just nailed it, and I was like, oh, maybe they're all gonna like get good again and not disappoint me.
I was even shocked because Arrow was actually good.
Right, it was so good.
Apparently, I need to catch up.
Not the flashback stuff. All the flashback stuff can just go to hell and rot there.
No, but the
please die in a fire.
But yeah, I agree. Like it's kind of my just kind of put it on like while I'm cooking dinner, like because I have a TV that reflects my living room TV in my kitchen, so I could put something on there and watch in my kitchen like while I'm like doing stuff. And so that's usually the show I do for that, just kind of whatever. But like I found myself like stopping and like watching, and then like toward the end of the episode, I'm like, oh, okay, this is gaining my attention. I'm actually interested in what's going on with these characters. Yes, and I don't agree so much with Flash.
Well, but the part of the beginning with Julian, that part just had me rolling in the floor laughing.
No, not at all. Flash is. I'm not talking any spoilers for me, Trent. So
I know.
Flash is not taking a dive, but it's the line chart graph.
Sorry, I didn't think that there was a funny part counted as a spoiler.
No, I was making fun of you. Do you watch Supergirl, Ross?
No.
That's unfortunate.
I actually acquired all of Supergirl, all the episodes, and was going to watch them, and then found out that when they did the Flashpoint stuff and had the super crossover that she's still not in their universe, and I was like, well, screw it. They're clearly not interested in me watching the show.
But you've seen the end of the crossover, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, she can come and go as she pleases. She might as well be in the same city, in the same universe now.
I feel like it's a little different because, like, there's constantly, if you watch in the background, there's constantly things in Arrow that reference Flash and things in Flash that reference Arrow, and there's like some subtle threads that kind of cross over between them. And there's even some times that like we're all past this point in Arrow. Like when he went to fight Ra's al Ghul, and the Flash showed up to save them all, and then Flash went and helped him fight, or sorry, the Arrow went and helped him fight Reverse Flash. Like those weren't crossovers, but they were like little cameo. It wasn't like a crossover event, but it was, they're in universe, so they can do those cool little moments. And I just feel like that's really like that kind of underthread is more what I'm looking for, even than like a mega crossover, because like that's what makes it really cool and immersive to me.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think the problem with Supergirl right now is that, as far as we know, there is no kryptonite on Arrow CW world, because she never crashed on there, and there's no Superman, there's no Supergirl. It's possible that random asteroids that have hit the planet would have kryptonite, but she is so much more powerful than literally everyone else that there'd almost be no reason to have the other characters. She could just show up, save them, and be home in 2 minutes.
She's more powerful than Arrow. I mean, she's really not more powerful than Flash.
Yeah, I was about to bust out my DC nerds there, that the Flash is the most powerful.
The Flash is actually the most powerful member of the founding Justice League.
Yeah, well, she makes better decisions than he does most of the time.
That is a true statement.
Her powers are further along than his.
Except in her dating life. Am I right?
She's not gonna ruin the space-time continuum to try to save the world.
Superman did that just to save one person. It just happened to work out for him. That was luck and different laws of physics.
Supergirl's better than Superman, so.
Oh, damn fighting words.
They are fighting words.
I mean, I have no loyalty to Superman, so go for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I understand why they're doing it. I think it would have to have been such a drastic change to bring her into their universe, like some kind of, I don't know, like the boundaries between their worlds collapse.
Like reality's collapsing because of Flashpoint?
I would bet money that it's going to happen.
That would have been the perfect time to do it, and they've missed that opportunity. But since they didn't do it,
they should do it now. The problem is that the one thing that Supergirl is weak against is not a show that they're currently running in a non-animated form. Superman's biggest weakness has always been magic.
That's a weakness, but his biggest weakness is always kryptonite.
Nah, because kryptonite, you have to be right next to him and get close enough and hit him with it. Like
magic decided, like, oh man, he needs another weakness. Let's just make magic his weakness too.
Well, but and that's fine. I get that. But then there were people that weren't that strong, except that they were good against magic. Like you had Hawk Girl, whose mace, because she was an alien from another planet, her mace disrupted magic, and so it gave kind of like a
paper scissors or Pokemon.
Exactly. It gave like a paper rock scissors setup where, like, Superman couldn't do everything because, like Trent said, there's really nothing that Superman can't do.
Yep. Anyway, let's move on to, have either of you played Shadow of Mordor?
Yes.
No. Well, I mean, yes, because you asked if either of us had, but I haven't.
I haven't either. but they announced the sequel today. Was it
I heard
today?
that Target announced it like a couple days ago.
Yeah, Target announced the sequel. It's called Shadow of Mordor.
That's the
Shadow
original
of
one.
War?
This one's Shadow of War.
Shadow of War. Sorry, the trailer is like the War of Mordor has begun or whatever. So I was like, they can have it. It's fine. Like, I don't need to fight over Mordor.
Yeah,
So
really,
I definitely
who's
recommend it to both of you. I mean, it is such
especially Trent,
tight.
who already owns it, who
Yeah.
didn't realize he owned it until the pre-show.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I should look up see if it's on sale. Oh yeah, I already own it.
The combat is just so well done, and the Nemesis system is a very, very unique form of tackling, how you go about taking on an army as a individual. Like, that's not really spoilers at all because it's just how the game works, but like you're literally going up against armies in Mordor, and so you can dominate certain orcs, like to where like they're now your servants, and then they're
Kinky.
they're in a certain rank in the military, and then you go like assassinate their leader and then like prove their strength, and then so like they go bumped up a rank, and so like you're basically trying to take over this army from within to use it, as for story reasons. And so it's kind of a manipulative chess game, as well as like as if you go up the ranks, obviously they get stronger and stronger, and every orc has its own personal randomly generated like weakness and strength, and so like some of them are like are scared of like this I don't like some kind of creature, and so if you're about to fight it, or like right before you go fight it, you lure this creature over, and like so it's close to like where you guys are beginning your duel. And when you guys start fighting, like the creature just kind of wanders in the arena. He just goes like, "Grr!" Like drops his sword and shield and starts running away, so you can run up and stab him. So like it adds another strategic element to, I won't say rock paper scissors, but you got to come to this fight where if you're a really good archer for how you respect your character, but he cannot be touched by arrows just because that's his strength. There are ways to manipulate his weakness to take him down, and
That'd be the worst Green Arrow villain ever. Can't be touched by arrows.
Yep. So
Anti-Arrow Man.
As someone who's not huge into the Lord of the Rings franchise, like I still really adored that game, and anyone who loves Lord of the Rings at all can find a lot to enjoy about it. Just really solid gameplay and stuff like that. So give it a try. Very excited for the sequel, and glad it's coming out this year. They already said it's coming out October, I believe. So it's gonna be good.
Very cool. Very cool. So the other news that makes me really sad is that Star Trek, the TV series, Star Trek Discovery, has been delayed again.
I'm pretty
I
sure
hope it's because they're redesigning that
exist.
effing ship.
They definitely tweeted out that the ship is not final, which is basically like, everybody hated the ship. We're going back to work on it some more. Because
Poor CG guys had to scrap all their hard work.
it wasn't that great.
It wasn't their hard work. They lifted it as like it was a B ship from like one of the other movies.
I don't know the story behind it. I was just making a joke. I was like, they had already done like all the CG scenes for the show, but then they're like, oh yeah, we're redesigning the ship now. So like, oh, so they have to do all the scenes over again.
So yeah, CBS executive Leslie Moonves said that there's been a lot of post-production work, but that they remain confident in the show's quality. But like, I keep getting more and more terrified.
That was kind of be my next statement. Like
every delay,
it's kind of like, I don't know how. A lot is writing on this to bring Star Trek back to television, and if it doesn't perform well, and if it's not good and doesn't perform well, people are like, I could see CBS being like, oh, people just don't want Star Trek TV shows.
Yeah, this could be the tipping point for Star Trek for the next decade.
Well, and especially since the last one was such a bomb.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it lasted what, 4 seasons?
I mean, it lasted 5 seasons, but they put it on a night when no one watched television and it wasn't up against anyone and didn't have a really competitive time slot.
Sure, but I mean, it still existed for 5 years on television, which is not nothing. I mean, it may have just been riding the waves.
I mean, it was not
Voyager,
loved by the Trek universe, regardless of whether it was a successful show or not.
And we also have to look at CBS then versus CBS now. CBS now is the most popular or most successful network broadcasting.
I know.
Channel.
Which I mean, does that really say that much in today's market, though? I mean, doesn't that mean less?
No, it still does, because everyone still gets it, and their numbers are still like
huge.
a lot bigger than cable shows. Even if you throw in stuff like Walking Dead, which has a ridiculous amount of viewership, you throw Big Bang Theory against anything, then, or even like some of the reality shows still, against anything, then
That's true. They do have a lot of winners.
Yeah, I mean, like Survivor still wins its Wednesday time slot 20 something years later, 10, 15 years later.
And so it's one reason why that Supergirl like just moved over to CW, because it did okay numbers and it did great CW numbers, but not CBS standard numbers. And so that's why it was like, and this threw it over to CW.
And I'm actually kind of sad that they aren't trying to just launch it on the CW, because the 100 has been doing great over there. There's other shows that don't fit like the, just the teeny bopper. Like CW actually has some decent. I mean, I think they have a lot of decent shows, but they have like their stereotypical shows. But I think it would do really well on there as compared to, because Voyager and Enterprise were both on UPN, which was what merged with WB to become the CW. And I don't know if it was Deep Space Nine on that as well. I can't remember anymore. It's been a long time. But
the numbers have all changed on my television since I watched those.
I'm so scared that regular people aren't going to be drawn to it, except maybe the first few episodes to be like, what's this thing? And then I don't know if you guys follow many Star Trek like Facebook groups or Reddit groups or anything like that, but
not really, no.
The Star Trek fandom has become, in my opinion, very negative, like hyper negative of anything. If anything's even remotely different from the originals, they hate it.
I just get that from the movies.
Yeah,
and the movie discussion threads.
Yeah, any mention of the any mention of the 3 new movies, everybody hates them. They're just JJ verse nonsense. It's not my Star Trek. Blah blah blah. I was like,
well, but I think there's a valid point to be had there.
I don't like.
Well, you're free to disagree. I think that it's important that Star Trek launch on CBS because it is a major network, and I think that Star Trek is at one of the best times that it could ever relaunch, because Star Trek has never been about science fiction, really. I mean, it's set in a science fiction world, but that's not what the show was supposed to be about. Star Trek has been about our capacity to envision a better future and to hope that at some point in the future, all of our petty earthbound squabbles will be gone, and that we'll be able to view the majesty of the universe in a way that we can only dream of now. That there won't be poverty, there won't be, the haves and the have-nots. That we'll all be equal citizens in the future. And the original Star Trek was as much a social commentary as it was anything else. And I think that's one of the things that over time got lost in Star Trek, because you look at some of the later scripts. I mean, even from like The Next Generation, and the script was like, oh no, there's a tech problem. Oh, Captain, I can tech the tech, because the people that were writing the scripts as writers didn't even, they did get some science geek guy to, we can reverse the polarity of the flux, and run it through the deflector dish for a quantum, and I think that's one of the points.
Sorry, I don't disagree.
I think that's one of the points where it lost broad appeal.
Right, I don't disagree with you. I don't know if that was countering what I was talking about in terms of the Star Trek fandom's feelings towards the new movies or not.
Well, they're all action movies. There's very little intellectual dialogue in them at all.
All the great Star Trek movies have been action movies.
All the great Star Trek movies have had action, but they've also had deeper philosophical questions that they ask.
And all 3 of the new ones have as well.
I'd also argue that, even though most hardcore Star Wars fans will agree that the original trilogy is the best Star Wars out there, there are tons of people, younger than the age maybe 25 who grew up on the prequels and the Clone Wars, and that's their Star Wars. Who are we or anyone to define, what true Star Wars is, if it's the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy or anything like that. We all have our own definitions of what real Star Wars is. And if those Star Trek fans want to think that the original series is their Star Trek and the only real Star Trek, that's fine with them. But for someone who only became a Star Trek fan, after the J.J. Abrams movie, I dabbled in Star Trek a little bit, but I loved the first J.J. Abrams movie, loved it so much that I went back and watched all of the original series and all of the Next Generation, and then coincidentally loved them as well. But it was the J.J. Abrams movie that brought me into that universe, so to speak. And so, I still love the J.J. Abrams movies, just as much as I love the original stuff now too. So
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that they won't do well. I really, really, really hope it does. I just worry about it being on CBS and competing against all of their really big shows. I mean, you have shows like Big Bang Theory, Survivor, Hawaii Five-O, NCIS, like all these like monster shows that pull in. I'm assuming like 5 to 10 million viewers a week. And if Star Trek doesn't do that, like I think Supergirl was bringing in 4 to 5, and it wasn't good enough. So I don't know. I'd have to go look
is
at
it
the
even
actual
going
numbers
on
from CBS.
CBS? I thought it was just going on
Well,
their internet
no,
thing.
it's. I think they might be doing like a special premiere, and then the rest of it's all on the internet. I haven't looked at it in a while. But
And
that's
even
the
so,
other
it
thing.
just
It's
doesn't bode
all
well
there.
because
Right.
the
It's
only
all
people
their
are going to
online
seek
homepage.
it out.
Yeah. Like
It's
how many
pretty much
people are going to go out of their way to pay for the CBS All Access and then watch Star Trek?
Yeah. Only a small amount of hardcore fans.
Right. Not new people that are just going to be like, oh, what's this? I should keep watching.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the pull of and the power of networks is if you have a really popular show and then you have a show that is fledgling that you put on right after it, people just leave their TV on while they go put their dishes away or whatever, and then they come back in and like, oh, what's this? Well, maybe I should watch it.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I miss about kind of classical television, even though I haven't watched TV like that in like 8 years.
I do want to add one more thing, just as a reason that people don't like the prequels, and because I mean they're not the worst movies out there. They're not the prequels, but the reboot. Uh, but it also was taking a very rich and wonderful history and wiping it all away. Because these people that are there now, I understand that it's Kirk and Spock and all that stuff, but like one of the neat things was like in the TNG, like they talked about, I wonder what Kirk would do in this situation, like what would Spock do in this situation. I mean, it wasn't a constant thing, but it popped up from time to time, and like everything was built on the history that came before. There were times that Picard was trying to decide if he should, interfere here or not, and he'd look at an earlier thing, and then even more so in uh, Deep Space Nine and in Voyager. In Voyager, when they had their whole thing about like, was the Doctor who was a hologram a person? Like they constantly reference back to data from TNG, and it's like so you have this history and like you could build upon it so well, but instead of taking that rich history and building upon it, they completely wiped it away in favor of a new slate when they could have had a perfectly fine slate with new Star Trek without wiping away everything that came before.
And I would disagree that they wiped everything away before because they provided an anchor in the movies themselves, which was, Spock Prime. Because Spock Prime's story takes place, post Next Generation, and there's, I'm a nerd. I read the comic, but there's a comic series that kind of bridges the gap between the end of the Next Generation, involving the crew of the Next Generation and Spock Prime and Neo, the villain in the first movie, and then ends with them going back in time, and then Spock Prime's presence throughout the first two movies, and then the response to his death in the third one. With what we know about the butterfly effect and things like that, the fact that Spock Prime existed proves that all of that timeline still happened and still occurred, just in an alternate timeline, so to speak.
Yeah, but it's not something that they can reference or learn from, or that's going to make a recurring thing because it's not their timeline.
No, but I mean every major IP for the most part does this. I mean, like every superhero comic in existence does this every time. Every time there's a re-release and like the new issue of this or the new relaunch of this, I mean, at least their universes connect, and technically the Prime Universe storyline is still happening. It's kind of like for me, it's better than what they did with Star Wars Legends. I mean, I feel like both decisions were made for good reasons. but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Legends, it is wiped out, and they're going to use chunks of it when they see fit, and retell a story in a different way, much like Star Trek did with Khan. But I still believe that Spock Prime was kind of the anchor that kind of shows that this reboot takes place, quote unquote, quote unquote. I'm going to say that another time, quote unquote, after the Next Generation. Because of that.
Right. I mean, there's, as a huge Star Trek fan, I think part of the problem they ran into with Star Trek Nemesis and Enterprise and Voyager is that they were running out of ideas in their canon universe. Like the directions that they had taken the Romulans and the Klingons, as soon as they made peace with the Klingons, that whole like the Alpha Quadrant story was done. Like I mean, because the Romulans are always going to kind of be there on the little thing, but they're not going to take on the Federation and the Klingons. And as long as the Federation and the Klingons are friends, which everybody wants, because everybody wants Worf to be a good guy or whatever, and then like Chancellor Martok and all the Deep Space Nine stuff. As soon as that was done, the Alpha Quadrant story is done and boring. And so they can either do what they did in like the rest of Deep Space Nine, which is an extra quadrant threat, or they do Voyager, where they actually leave the quadrant altogether. I mean, they could have done like a Star Trek universe where I don't know, the Borg won, and there's like one remaining like Battlestar Galactica-esque fleet of ships or something. But I think
it's not hard to have a threat that comes to the Alpha Quadrant. I mean, aliens that have a different type of tech that allows them to travel faster through space, or that left 1,000 years ago to come conquer this quadrant when it was small, and now it's not small, but they brought an armada.
Or
Like
every
there's
50,000
plenty of
years, there's
ways
a
to
sentient
bring.
race of machines that come in and wipe out all human life. And
I just feel like between the Borg and Species 8472, like some variant of that story has been done already. I mean, like even the Q story was done and like boring by the end of Voyager. I think it was starting to collapse under its own weight, personally.
either way, we could argue back and forth on whether it was a good idea or it shouldn't happen. But it
And
did
we
happen.
will.
We
And I
now
definitely
have the JJ verse and the Prime universe, and
right.
that's now two playgrounds for us to play Star Trek in.
And I definitely appreciate what Ross is saying. I'm not saying that he's dumb to have the opinion that you do, but
nor are everybody who else who does. We
right.
we
You
like
heard
more
it here first.
positivity.
Trent doesn't think I'm dumb.
We like more positivity in our communities,
Yes.
in Star Trek and Star Wars. I mean, like, I don't know about you guys, but I was getting really pissed off because the Mass Effect, the gameplay we saw, the comments on Reddit were just all like, man, that AI really sucks. Like, they're just kind of standing there not doing anything. And I just want to be like, look, like, they're just trying to show off the gameplay. They probably turn it on easy and even maybe turn the AI down so they could just show, like, look, I'm switching weapons here. This is me using this power and stuff like that. They didn't
I
want to,
thought they
like,
were just like holographic enemies. I thought it was like a training area.
like, they don't, maybe, but they don't want to, like, have a challenge, like a super hard combat challenge, while they're just trying to show off, like, the mechanics of the game. So, like, everyone was judging Mass Effect's AI based on that video. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine. Just play the game. Don't think that this gameplay is, I don't know. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I think that and this is kind of what I was trying to say earlier with the Star Trek community, and that it affects a lot of kind of nerdy fandoms and gaming in general. Is that people are it's cool right now to be down on things. I don't know if it's a hipster
Yeah.
thing or what it is, but it's like people want to be part of the, oh, it looks terrible, it's gonna suck, don't pre-order anything ever again because of No Man's Sky, don't give them your money, EA is the devil. It's like,
EA is the devil.
why? That's a whole nother conversation, but it's like I like, I don't know, maybe it's naive of me, but I try to be a really, really positive, hopeful person when it comes to new IPs, software companies that I like, shows that I love. I mean, I keep watching all the CW superhero shows, even when they have bad episodes, because I'm hopeful that they're going to keep being good enough to keep watching, even if they have season-long fumbles or multi-season long fumbles. But so yeah, our overall message: be positive, try not to shit on everything, and
Or if you're gonna shit on things, at least have a logical, coherent reason that you think that it's shit, rather than just shitting on it because it's
I'm saying
fashionable to do so.
swears. We are rated E for everyone.
If you're gonna on things, at least have a reason to on things.
I thought we were doing the arc poop noise.
Yeah.
That's licensed, man. You're gonna get taken down, just like
Yeah.
that Star Wars video.
We do not speak of this.
So anyway, let's see. Was there anything else that we haven't talked about?
What games are you guys playing right now?
So I'm back on Civ 6 again. I was watching that, or I was playing that while watching Gilmore Girls. So I'm powering through both of those and enjoying myself. And Ross and I were recently pulled into a game called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Yep.
And it's super fun.
It is super fun. And I saw
Really
Trent playing
fun.
Civ 6, and he wasn't on Discord. And I'm like, dang it, he's watching Gilmore Girls. And I had no one to help me defuse bombs, and I was sad.
So much fun. We had a blast even.
I mean, it's a really good game. I was really blown away by a bunch of the stuff in it.
So are you familiar
It's
with
got
the
a lot of
game, Ryan?
explosive action.
Yeah, I know a lot about it.
Right. So for anyone listening that hasn't heard about it, it's multiplayer, but it's kind of two different experiences. Yeah, it's asymmetrical multiplayer. One person can see the screen, and you can either like do it through VR or just a regular laptop, tablet, PC. And they see a bomb, and they have to describe the bomb to the people who have bomb defusal manuals, and the people turn to the right page of that module, read through a series of logic puzzles, basically, and tell the bomb diffuser how to defuse each module so they can defuse the bomb before the timer goes off and blows up. It's really simple in its design, it's simple in its graphics and its execution, but it's a really fun group puzzle game that you can play with people in the same room, or you can play like we do on a Discord server and chat with people on the interwebs.
I like the interwebs.
The interwebs are fun.
So I beat 2 games this weekend. I'm so proud of myself.
Woo!
The first one was The Last Guardian. It's a game that I've talked with a little bit with TJ on here. It's from the same people who made Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, Team Eco. It's a game that I had held off getting at launch at the fall of last year, just because I wanted PS4 Pro, because apparently the frame rates weren't great on the original PS4. Frame rates weren't great a lot of times on the PS4 Pro either, but I'm sure it dropped down into the teens and single digits several times. But that being said, I really, really enjoyed it, especially the latter half. The first half I found frustrating, as the game didn't give a whole lot of instruction of how to play and how to like move the beast around and manipulate things, and it slowly got better. Just you as a player kind of learned how the beast moved and controlled, and then the game gives you better tools to do that and such like that. And throughout the game, you form a natural bond with the animal creature. Trico is his name. And no spoilers here, but just the ending packs a good punch emotionally. That I thought I was going to predict what was going to happen, because even from the very first trailers that came out like 9 years ago, you're like, oh yeah, I totally know what's going to happen at the end of that game. And not to say that it does or doesn't, but it still managed to invoke an emotional response from me. And so I'm always happy when a game can do that really well, and that one really did. So really happy about that. Also on TJ's suggestion, and also Nick's suggestion as well, I played Night in the Woods. Do you guys remember TJ talking about that last week? At least you, Trent?
Yeah, how'd it go?
It was okay. It was very, very okay. Again, no spoilers, but I kind of compared a lot to Undertale, to where like it's just like a lot of like rambling and talking. And I'm a fan of Mass Effect. I love rambling and talking, but like it was writing that thought it was a lot more clever than it really was, in my opinion, just like Undertale. And so like I don't know, and there's some like there's a lot of symbolism for what's the word I'm looking for? Mental diseases. That's not the right one. Stuff like anxiety and depression, things like that.
Oh, okay.
It tries to give a lot of symbolism for that, and I don't want to say it comes off as preachy because that's way too strong. But again, it tries to like metaphorically to do that kind of stuff, but it's kind of just too in your face about it. I don't know. I don't think I'm making any sense at all. But it was okay. Like that sort of stuff I really didn't like, but there was an underlying mystery that's happening the whole game in the real world, not in the weird trippy I'm depressed and have anxiety world kind of stuff. And I was really focused in on that mystery, and I love that kind of stuff. Also, kind of going back into what I said, there's probably 2 or 3 like conversations that you have with other characters in the game that are really good conversations, and I got really deeply invested with them. They didn't really have deep meaning or symbolism. It was just like one character, this isn't really a spoiler, but one character just kind of talks about his childhood and what his home life was like, and it goes into a lot of detail, and it really brought that character to life, and I really felt connected to that character in that moment, and obviously that character became my favorite character. But so overall, I give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Just kind of average. Not that great. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I'm glad I played it.
Nice.
The end.
So we're running low on time, but I have, since the last time he was on the show, had a recent convert to the Expanse, and I want him to gush about it for a little bit, maybe like 2-3 minutes. Ross?
I don't know if I can go on for about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm usually pretty short-winded.
Okay, well then 60 seconds.
No, it's a really cool show. I like the tech in it. It seems very much it seems very grounded, kind of in what we're able to do currently. Obviously, there's some leaps, like for example, the fact that they can go a lot they can accelerate a lot faster than the human body could because they have this mysterious G-force drug or whatever that the ship shoots into them. But no, it's a really interesting universe. I like the show a lot. I've planned to continue watching it. I honestly would be interested in just seeing like other shows set in that universe where you have kind of the Earth and Mars that are hostile or neutral at best to each other, and then you have the Belt. That's a setup that I've seen in some other books. Some of the Orson Scott Card books that he's done from like some of the early prequels to Ender's Game, like before the buggers invaded the first time. You had kind of a similar setup with the Earth and the Moon, and then the miners and the Belt being kind of at odds with each other. It's a really interesting dynamic. There's a lot of space to play with in our own solar system without having to go anywhere with mass relays and things of that nature. And I think it's an interesting experiment to kind of how power dynamics work in the future. Because right now you're either an American or you're Mexican or you're Canadian or you're British or you're from Spain, and just like in the future they have the United Nations. The United Nations are Earth and the Moon, and so it's kind of interesting because it is kind of a dystopian future in some ways, but it's also a really hopeful future in some ways at the same time, because there's no dissent on Earth. Like Earth is united, but then you also see kind of like the worst of humanity and how they treat the people in the Belt. And also the fact that the UN has drones that flies over the planet that can launch a missile at you whenever they want is probably why there's peace on Earth. But overall, really liking it. That's without going too much into the storyline. So if anyone hasn't seen it, they can get into it and not be overly spoiled. But it's a lot of fun. I really like the universe. I honestly probably like the universe even more than I like the specific story they're telling. But that's not a bad thing. It means they have a lot of interesting space that they can move into.
Space.
Space.
Spaceship. Spaceship. So I think, unless there's anything else that either of you wanted to bring up.
I think I'm good.
Cool. That will bring us to an end for this week's episode of the Brief Nerdity podcast. Thanks to everyone who was listening. Please feel free to send us an email, tweet at us, post on our Facebook page, leave us a comment, or a rating over on iTunes, that would be great. I'm also working this week to get us up on the Google Play Store. So if you have the Google Play app, you can download the native podcast stuff from there. And more content and videos and articles on briefnerdity.com. So check it out.
And if someone was interested in becoming a sponsor for Brief Nerdity, where would they send that information, Ryan? How would they get in touch with you?
Leave a comment. No one leaves comments.
Yes, let's start with any community interaction whatsoever.
All right. So
That'd
if
be
you would
great.
like to be a sponsor of Brief Nerdity, leave your information in the comments, and I'm sure that Ryan will get back with you.
Just leave your credit card number, social security, all that jazz.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I have some things to buy in March.
I mean, it is tax season. You have all that on your computer anyways now, right?
All right, that's been that's the episode. Thanks everybody for coming and speaking with us. Thanks to Ross and Ryan.
Live long and prosper.
From the Prime Universe.
All right, good night.